Alright, this is the first in a string of new reviews handpicked by Patreon members choosing specific games for new episodes. So what do we got first up, Hamster? Yeah, well, we certainly got some interesting picks here, but first up, I think we've got make sure Kim gets one too. But the Patreon members obviously go first, right? Okay, it's fine. Kim can start us off with her pick. But what game do you want? Oh, I bet it's Yoshi. You love Yoshi, right? Look what she's holding. You're right. That sure is a big knife. But we already did Overcooked.
Xenosaga 3, now!
Xenosaga Episode 3, an obscure PS2 JRPG series that paved the way for Xenoblade Chronicles. The series has never been ported, updated, or remastered in any way, making the game's finale quite rare and highly sought after, fetching an average of $300 at the absolute cheapest. But aside from the obscene rarity and price involved, you've also got to dust off the old PS2, or get your hands on a functioning one to even play it. Our PS2 died immediately after we completed Xenosaga Episode 3. Oh no, you can't play Monster Hunter 1 anymore. But the point is, this game is extremely sought after, and there are a lot of good reasons for that, which we'll get into. But the sad part is that most gamers haven't even heard of Xenosaga, due to the trilogy not even being remotely accessible. You know, this trilogy was actually supposed to be a series of 6 installments? Yeah, 2 tanked so badly that they had to backpedal their scope significantly and instead go out with a bang with a single monumental installment that most players just won't get to experience. So instead, I'll just do my best to try and catch you all up to speed on what you've missed out, considering how you'll probably never get the chance to actually play it. I don't know, our self-deprecated whining somehow brought Metroid back from its 20-year coma. Just up-res and port this to Switch and Steam, Bamco, come on! But Hamster, they can't do that! They're allergic to money! You're right. It's not like the popularity and gaming climate for JRPGs has significantly grown over the past 15 years or anything. They should definitely just develop another generic anime game instead. Oh, totally. Normally, I'm against video game developers discarding their innovative ideas completely in favor of sticking to what works. But this game rightly belongs in the trash. Completely forget everything you know about breaking zones and all that other crap from 2, and instead we're treated to a more traditional RPG format, but with some new innovations inspired by the original. You've got your standard physical attacks, ether attacks, and the newly repurposed tech attacks, which serve as situational purposes like afflicting tougher enemies with the new break status. And no, it's not the same breaking nonsense. Instead, it's more like a stun gauge that builds up and cripples opponents, or you, from filling the bar to the max, making the broken character more susceptible to damage and temporarily left wide open for attacks until they recover. You've also got access to a revamped boost gauge, where you can store and spend up to 3 charges to unleash extra powerful attacks. You can also once again plan out your moves in advance with a nifty turn order timeline in the UI. Whew, I'm so glad that sounds like an actual RPG! Yeah, luckily this title goes back to RPG basics, but also still manages to retain its unique personality from 1 and 2 attempted. But that does mean it's still got some stray dingleberries, like the awkward overworld trap mechanic. I can't believe you just casually used the word dingleberries. You do, however, get some more in-depth skill trees and more involved giant mech battles this time. And no RPG is complete without its skill trees and mech battles. And drawn-out cutscenes wading through lengthy, chatty dialogue segments. Ah, right, and we've got to kill God at the end. Yeah, screw you, God! We're a hodgepodge group of intergalactic misfits. You think you're the boss of us? Here's what I think of your omnipotence, Mr. Holier-than-Thou. Suck an Easter egg! Hey, let's keep picking on episode 2. I love beating off dead horses. Don't you mean? I mean that episode 3 basically does away with the awful aesthetic of episode 2 and instead finds a happy medium of 3D anime and realistic cartoon styles. I'm still on the horse thing. I mean it when I say that this is one of the best looking PS2 games out there. 1 was an early experimentation of 3D models with an anime aesthetic, and 2 awkwardly aimed for realism when the hardware wasn't ready for it yet. But 3 hits that perfect middle ground to maximize the PS2's limitations while also capitalizing on what worked well before. Though, censorship certainly got in the way. Like with an odd scene in the English game where a young Shion is traumatized by the death of her mother and just cups her hands and keeps saying, "I need to put it back." If you were playing the Japanese version, you would have seen blood everywhere, even pulled up in Shion's cupped hands as she's wondering how to put it back in her mother to save her. Thanks for ruining the scene, ESRB. And by the way, the first 2 games both had blood and gore and were rated teen. They also didn't want you to see Shion's butt in a shower scene. So yeah, this game was almost rated M because of some blood and a butt. Man, the ESRB can go beat off a horse. That's the spirit. Honestly, it's the story that makes Xenosaga the cult classic that it is, and we want to spend a while talking about it here, especially considering how most players will never get the chance to experience it for themselves. And since it clearly won't ever get an HD remaster ported to Switch or Steam, we might as well even forego any spoiler skips here since it's entirely unnecessary. Did you hear that, Bandai Namco? Here's your chance to make me look like an impatient, dimwit horse beater! Also, just for posterity, you can also try to hunt down the DS remake, combining Xenosaga episodes 1 and 2, as well as watch the anime, mangling of the story of episode 1, before checking out 3. However, ultimately, the PS2 is the only place that you will be seeing episode 3. And for even more preposterous postulating posterity, Xenosaga Pied Piper was a Japan-exclusive mobile game that delved into the past and untold story of Ziggy, who gets oddly neglected throughout the series. Just in case you didn't think this series was inaccessible enough. Fortunately, his story hardly matters. Anyway, Xenosaga Episode 3 is effectively 4 JRPG stories crammed into one. Remember how Xenosaga was supposed to be 6 episodes long? Well, you'll certainly feel that while playing 3, as there are several moments where you will be floored with how much story you will be hit with all at once. I remember some cutscenes where you basically get infobomb after infobomb, just blasting the story forward like you wouldn't believe. I was repeatedly saying to myself, I bet that thing we just glossed over was intended to be an entire game. So anyway, we're gonna assume that by watching this video, you either know the stories of the first 2 games, or you've already watched our reviews of them. In either case, you should be well aware of how ridiculously in-depth Xenosaga goes with its story, so bear with us as we try our best to summarize the chaos into something more digestible. To even get a grasp of the story to begin with, I was constantly in and out of the in-game glossary, which was about as thick as a freaking phone book. Seriously, you could spend days reading up on the wikis for these games and still not fully grasp the overarching plot. Anyway, the show begins with a flashback chapter where the interdimensional Gnosis attack the city of Mictum before we get that huge info bomb, which basically equates to Shion investigating the mysteriously powerful Zohar, as well as the scheming immigrant fleet and Ormus, basically a cult of elitist religious nutcases who think that the Zohar belongs to them. It's here where Shion starts giving you the spark notes from the cut games. No kidding, she just blows through name-dropping new factions and plot twists left and right, bombarding you with information that all got downsized to fit this game's scope. Imagine trying to explain the entire story of Metal Gear Solid to someone in 4 minutes. That's what this feels like. Basically, Shion discovers her father was involved in a vector-created cover-up of the Zohar, and that the ancient technology originated from their ancestors on Lost Jerusalem, the name of the planet where life originated, lost long ago to the ages, Earth. So Shion quits Vector and joins an anti-UMN rebel group after realizing that she was basically working for the bad guys. While still coordinating with her old Vector colleague Alan, who has since become the new chief, she witnesses a Federation military demonstration where kos-mos is pitted against her updated replacement unit, Telos, where kos-mos gets her tin can kicked in, resulting in her entire development to be canned as well, where the military promptly decides to literally throw her away in a garbage dump. Meanwhile, Junior, Momo, and the rest of the party members are attacked by a recurring bad guy who I swear doesn't know when to just die already, Margulis, who traps the cruise ship, the Elsa, in some energy thing right after they all manage to escape. At this point, they determine that the only way to recover their ship is with kos-mos' help. So they meet up with Shion and break into the Federation compound to salvage the discarded war machine, to the delight of all the traumatized fans who couldn't bear to watch kos-mos get thoughtlessly tossed in a dumpster. She was only gone for a hot minute, but it felt like ages. Unlike how long she was gone in 2, which actually was ages. So with the band back together, they attempt to recover the Elsa, where they get ambushed by Virgil, the Lieutenant kos-mos comically murdered in episode 1 because avoiding him when he stepped within her line of fire would slightly decrease her killing efficiency. Yeah, that guy. He's alive. Kinda. Right, so now he's calling himself a testament. Things are left kind of vague on what that all means, and honestly, a lot of the game is like this. You're not supposed to be able to follow it all like we mentioned in our episode 1 review, but for those willing to read up on all the jargon, they will not be disappointed. So you beat this Organization 13 dude, and Telos appears, and absolutely puts kos-mos in her place. For how much the past games have built up how insanely powerful kos-mos is, watching her get so utterly crushed does nothing but set up how absurd Telos is. Then things start getting weird. Shion's pendant emits a bright flash of light, and everyone gets transported to Old Miltia 15 years in the past. This is the planet that Shion grew up on that suddenly vanished after a vicious Gnosis attack. This entire segment was probably intended to be its own game, as it reminds me a lot of episode 2, delving into Momo's memories, considering how that's basically what the party is doing again, but with Shion. Yeah, sorry to spoil that, but it's not real time travel. Alright, at least I think so. It's really weird. A lot happens, and believe me, we are skipping over a lot of it. So Shion takes this opportunity to investigate her father's corruption, track down Kevin, her former lover, and kos-mos' creator in order to help save the comatose android from her second humiliating defeat. But before the newly rebuilt kos-mos can be activated, another testament attacks the crew and attempts to kill Shion, which sets off some serious mommy alerts in the dormant death machine, awakening her just in time to save Shion and beat this guy into next Tuesday in an awesome redemptive cutscene where kos-mos finally joins your party. So after a lot of not important, Old Miltia gets attacked by an army of Realians, basically a genetically engineered race that blur the line between human and machine. Well, they revolt and start murdering everyone, including the young Shion's parents. Yeah, we decided to break the #1 rule of time travel and meet ourselves. Due to the trauma, the young Shion screams and with a flash of light inexplicably summons the Gnosis to attack Old Miltia. While overcome with grief that she's the one who brought upon this intergalactic apocalypse, her douchebag boyfriend Kevin reveals that he's also a testament, and that Shion's unnatural link with the Zohar through kos-mos is slowly killing her. As if the girl couldn't catch a break, the group is returned to the present, where they realize these testaments actually orchestrated this dive into Shion's memory, taking advantage of her strange power in order to have her unwittingly summon Abel's Ark, a mysterious spacecraft the size of an entire star system. Have we lost you yet? Because it only gets weirder. So this Ark is actually the observational gateway for the will of the universe, Udu, to witness and interact with this dimension. And it's Udu that's been speaking through the Zohar and kos-mos to Shion, giving her these unexplained visions and abilities. So in what was probably another entire game, the party challenges and stops several groups and villains from making contact with the Ark, all while fending off the Gnosis attacks, before ultimately they meet their match with Albedo, basically Junior's genetic brother and past overarching villain, who is revealed to be yet another testament in a final boss fight. But no, it is not over yet. So Albedo's consciousness somehow gets sucked into Junior's brain, where he warns the group that Abel's Ark is headed for Mictum. Taking his word for it, they head towards the planet at war, and in an effort to stop the other testaments from doing stuff. It's there that they face off against another testament, and this time he's a character from Ziggy's past, whom he, alongside the 2 other people in the world who actually played Pied Piper, recognized for a few seconds before defeating and forgetting about him forever. As if all this wasn't enough, Telos soon appears, revealing that she physically occupies the body of Mary Magdalene, the actual biblical character, while kos-mos houses Mary's consciousness, and she intends to defeat kos-mos in order to absorb this dormant will inside of her body and reawaken this ancient follower of— Jesus Christ, is this actually happening? You honestly didn't think this could get any weirder, did you? So luckily, with kos-mos' upgrades made back on Old Miltia, which now that I think about it shouldn't have actually happened for real, are enough for the group to turn the tide against Telos and defeat her, which awakens kos-mos' dormant Mary persona, indicated by her eyes changing from red to blue. Aside from her huge personality shift, it is uncomfortable. Yeah, so apparently after thousands of years, our starbound descendants have all but completely lost all context and sense of any semblance of religion, which in our time, we ourselves have also lost to our own thousands of years of mistranslation and interpretation. Though the religious connection comes as a random shock, it makes a lot of sense when you realize that it's the last remnant of what these people have from their long-lost home planet. And being stupidly far in the future did nothing but distance them from what little we even know about in modern day, resulting in fanatical cults like Ormus to exist, persisting this ancient blind faith. Well, since the Bible is about as accurate as a history book as a Wikipedia entry on Roswell, the game takes the liberty in becoming more of an unbiased commentary on humanity's attempt at reaching out to a godlike power, which in this case is the unknowable otherworldly will of Udu. Getting back to the story, the group uncovers Zarathustra, a massive transdimensional rift between reality and Udu, powered by the Zohar, where Wilhelm, the leader of the Testaments, is waiting for Xion and kos-mos' arrival. He's been here all along in the story, kind of sprinkled about here and there. It just wasn't really important to mention until now. Speaking of not being important up till now, we've had another party member from the very beginning of episode 1 named Chaos. He was set up to have this weird superpower relating to the Gnosis before the game completely dropped that plot thread until, of all times, now. So I guess he's some sort of immortal, super powerful disciple of Udu or something wacky like that. Cause he and Wilhelm both seem to be the only two people who actually know what the heck is going on. Plus he's straight up seen hanging out on Lost Jerusalem in the super ancient past with Mary Magdalene, and Jesus Christ is actually a character in this game? Dude, that's not even the crazy part. So apparently Wilhelm is tasked with assuring that Zarathustra, with the will of Mary and the power of the Zohar, rewrites the universe in order to save it from being destroyed at the end of time. Apparently, he's been doing this an untold number of times now, as he and Chaos seem to be the only ones able to fully survive a loop. Excuse me? So, the universe will ultimately come to an end, and being immortal, this is basically the only thing that will inevitably end you. So Wilhelm aimed to not only get as close to Udu as possible during his infinite lifetime, but also find a way to game the outcome of the universe in his favor to live forever with near ultimate power at the expense of the free wills and lives of everyone and everything in the entire universe. What a douchebag. So he tortures Xion to command kos-mos, Mary remember, into enacting this will and causing the next loop. Kevin, a testament let's also remember, is a servant of Wilhelm, karate chops off Wilhelm's arm with his own arm. Because I guess torture bothers him, even though he was perfectly fine with torturing Alan himself just minutes beforehand. What a hypocrite. Wait, he actually karate chopped off a dude's arm? Oh yes, and with no blood, remember? It just kind of thunks onto the floor. Comedy gold. Best part of the entire game. How could it get any better than that? By Kevin then thrusting his arm inside of Wilhelm, believing that he could operate Zarathustra himself simply by having his arm inside of him. As if that means anything. I'm speechless. So that masochistic yaoi gore scene does nothing but activate Zarathustra, where the party has to face off against whatever this is for an intense final boss battle. Oh, so this is the final boss battle. I swear, I thought this game had like 5 final bosses, and it was over just before we moved on to the next overwhelming threat, and the final bosses just kept going. 4 RPGs in one, remember? Right. Anyway, you get this awesome scene where you think Mary is going to activate the universe-ending command, but instead kos-mos breaks through her own consciousness and takes command. And yes, I only mention this part because it's probably Kim's favorite moment in the entire series.
Very good. You have done well. With this, we will be able to live forever.
Kos-mos!
What are you doing? You fool. Now this universe will be completely destroyed. Mary, is this what you really want?
I am not Mary. I am kos-mos.
Did we ever mention that Xion has a brother named Jin? Well, he dies after the group stops Zarathustra for good and fends off an onslaught of all the Gnosis in the universe converging on them all at once. Everyone escapes while kos-mos stays behind, taking on all the Gnosis alone, considering Jin's no help. During the chaos, the group manages to escape while all of space and time warps, erasing any connection to the UMN and freeing the Elsa from its force field. Yeah, remember that? But during their escape, kos-mos, as well as the rest of all the Gnosis, detonate in a massive explosion, and all we're left with is watching her mangled, limbless, cybernetic body floating in the cold vacuum of space, while Chaos's voice speaks to her through narration, assuring her that she can finally sleep, until the universe needs her once again. Until Super Smash Bros., right? Well, she does make a ridiculous amount of cameos in other games, including Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Man, my brain hurts. And that was just a quick summary? Oh, I left out dozens of hours of things to talk about, like all the philosophical and thematic concepts at work here, much less the actual story and characters I didn't even mention for the sake of this making even a little sense. How come the more I learn about Xenosaga, the less I understand? I am so relieved this section is finally over. I did it, Kim! Yeah, the music's good and all, but more importantly, the entire voice cast from episode 1 is back, reprising their roles. 2 really feels like this weird nightmare where everyone you know is replaced with their stunt doubles. The composer from episode 2 also returns for episode 3, which, as we mentioned in our review of 2, was basically the best part of the game, so that's definitely good to see. But more importantly, the original voice cast members! I already said that. It's a big deal! I loved Xenoblade Chronicles, and Kim loved Xenosaga. While talking about a few of our favorite games in college, we both found it weird how 2 of our favorite games' names were so similar but weren't related as far as we knew. Goes to show how easy it can be to lose touch with a franchise you love, or its own origins. No game is worth paying upwards of $1,000 to play, assuming you can get a functional PS2 on the cheap. And unfortunately, this great game is trapped in this outdated PS2 disc set. I was honestly shocked at how great Xenosaga Episode 3 was. If by some miracle you're able to get your hands on a copy, play it. Or at least take comfort in knowing that you can now legally emulate it instead. For the rest of you, I would recommend checking out some of the game movies people make on YouTube, compiling up-resed cutscenes and gameplay showcasing games like the Xenosaga trilogy. It's unfortunately the best and most affordable way that I can confidently recommend the series. Until we get that port, Bamco! The positive gamer in me enjoyed Xenosaga Episode 3 enough for a powerful 9 out of 10. Personally, I had a great time with this super in-depth RPG. As Kim and I got to play it all together while she was on controller duty, I was on glossary and wiki duty, and we both had a blast with this ludicrous sci-fi roller coaster ride. The critical gamer in me recognizes the huge steps forward in Xenosaga Episode 3 with a 7 out of 10. Though it still can have its lulls and lengthy cryptic exposition, this title offers just as much story to uncover and explore as it does combat, gameplay, and exploration, which is certainly welcome and impressive not only for its time, but for the genre as a whole. But what do you think? Tell us how your positive and critical sides rate Xenosaga Episode 3 in the comments below. Or if you even knew what the series was before we started reviewing it in the first place. Sure, I'm not seeing this series get ported anytime soon. But if you believe with all the crossovers and promotional works Bandai Namco pushes to continually show off their favorite RoboGal that they've somehow forgotten about Xenosaga, then you're just playing with yourself. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for more, and use the links in the description to nominate some future episodes. Thank you to our Patreon members, Atomic Thomas, Cameron, Arrow, Rowan, Erica, Shyam, Sid, and Squad Fam. Booyah!